First of all, I would like to say thank you for having me on the show. I'm honored to be here with you and your other guests. Um, I'm well. This season, I'm taking this moment for the holidays to get some rest. Not sure how successful that's going, but taking it one day at a time. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for accepting the invitation to be here on this December 30th. And your job this evening, you are going to take us on this journey. You're going to review crime in Barbados. I'm sure you heard us talking at the beginning of the program about the national anthem and the last line in there that says, "And greater will our nation grow in strength and unity." And so I know that that's your heart cry as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
we're going to say over to you, sir, and we are ready. Everybody ready?
Okay.
You got your books? Look, I'm an old time, old time. Let me have pen. The other one I wrote out. The other one is my son's pen, and I got a book here, and I like to write my notes. So I'm looking forward to the
Yes.
education tonight, guys. Please share. It's going to be great. Over to you, Jonathan.
Okay. So tonight I'm going to be talking about violence amongst our youth, particularly. I'm going to be giving the areas I think are the causes for this violence that we're seeing today with our youth. And I don't just like to point out issues in society and just leave it at that. I also want to address practical solutions that we can take and that we can use to help combat all the violence and the misbehavior that we're seeing with our youth today. Um, Before I even start, I also want to say that violence with our youth doesn't mean on a bigger scale that our youth is bad. It's just that the bad things get the most attention, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
there are plenty of positive young people out there doing good things, doing the right things, but doing the right things don't get you attention, you know. So try not to. I also myself and I always encourage people try not to have or come to one conclusion when it comes to our youth because there are a lot of good ones out there, and I see them on a daily basis when I do the work that I do. Um, so to bring some references to what I'm talking about, on November 18th, 2022, there were 40 homicides recorded, and this was taken from the nation, and so they were basically highlighting how many homicides were actually happening in Barbados, and I think that was a record. 40 homicides were recorded in 11 months at that time. So, on other instances we had it was pertaining to youth and violence was on January 13th, 2023, a 15-year-old student was stabbed, and this was taken from Loop News on their website. On October 11th, 2023, a 27-year-old was shot and fatally killed. That was taken from Barbados Today. On the 6th of December 2023, a 31-year-old man was shot and killed as well. So these are issues that we're seeing coming up more often, more and more in our society today, and is predominantly being perpetrated by young people. And the last issue I wanted to mention was me myself on the 21st of November this year. I myself was almost stabbed by a student going to a particular school, you know. And this was after trying to intervene in a situation, trying to calm a situation, and it ended up at that point. So we can clearly see that there are signs of the issue of violence as it pertains to our youth. So what I'm going to be looking at here is what are the causes for violence in our youth today? And I have five major points, but as I name the points, I'm going to also dive into examples of those points. Okay? So the first point I have is influence. And influence when it comes to the youth is a very powerful thing, you know. The influence is where you get your information from, is the basis on where you make your choices from, depending on where you take your influence. And the first thing I have under the list for influence is music. Music is a very powerful medium, you know. And I was having a conversation with a DJ the other day, and I was talking to him in regards to the violent music, or the music promoting gun violence, and how that is negatively impacting the youth. And as I was asking his perspective as a DJ, what does he find when he plays that type of music at parties and stuff? And he himself had to tell me. At first, he was hesitant to make the linkage between music and that kind of behavior, but then he himself had to admit that when he's at parties, he only plays that kind of music. He call it the bad boy music. He only plays that for like 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, he just try to switch the vibe back into partying, because if he plays the music longer than that, things tend to escalate at a party. And this is a place people are coming to have fun and enjoy themselves. So it's showing you the power of music and how it can influence people to do things. For another example is even Corpover. I see some Corpover songs, it has instructions for women to do, and whatever is almost as if the artist could say anything, and whatever he puts in that song, the women on the road would do on that day, you know. So again, there is a direct link to music and how it affects us. So that was one of the points. The other point I had was online. A lot of our young people are getting their influence online, and this is coming through YouTubers. This is coming through influencers. This is coming through social media. Some of our youth, they're not outgoing, they're not extroverted, they're more introverted. And you find with those types, they would more so stay inside, and they would watch YouTube. They would watch their favorite influencers. They'll be on social media. They'll be on these things because they're not going outside. They're not socializing the regular way. They're inside for whatever reason, and as a result, they're getting their influences online. Um, the next point I wanted to make after that one under influences was environment. Your environment does have a part to play in what's influencing you. What's your surroundings like? You know, what's your area? What's your neighborhood like? All of these things impact, or what is impacting our youth and where they're getting their influences from. Um, the next thing I wanted to talk about was social. So the reason I separated social and online, even though online has social media, was because that's not everybody. There are some young people I've spoken to, and they don't necessarily are on WhatsApp all the time or Snapchat all the time. You know, they're maybe the ones who are more extroverted, who like to talk in person, who like to hang out with friends in person, those sort of persons. So the social environment, whether that may be in the home, whether that may be the neighborhood, whether that may be at church, whether that may be at school, their social environment. This is where they may pick up their influences from. And the last under that is the culture. So you could even bring it to us as Barbadians. There's certain things here that a Barbadian could generally agree upon, and that's directly linked to our culture. Our culture defines what we accept from what we don't accept. Our culture decides on what we do and what we don't do, you know. So a culture has a major part to play in the child's development and where they're getting their influences from. So for example, for a child that's getting their influence from the school environment, the culture in that school environment is going to dictate their behavior, you know, if that's where they're getting majority of their influence from. So the culture is a very powerful thing, you know. And the second point I had was lack of influence, and lack of positive influence in particular. And the reason I have that as a point, because I believe a child's first point of influence is the parent. The parent is the first person that has the authority over a child. They're the first, they're the child's first point of contact. Therefore, they will be the first person that child will be drawing their information from, drawing their tendencies, their behaviors from. So the reason I put lack of positive influence is, as we would know, a lot of persons in our society, or a lot of our youth, are coming from single parent homes. And with a single parent home, one thing that's there for majority of the situations is a lack of the father being in the household, a lack of the father being there. And that impacts a young person, because children have an innate deep desire to have a connection with their mother and the father. So when the father isn't there, that is going to have an impact of them on them, sorry. And not just that, but a lot of the times, when the father isn't there, the mother now has to pick up the financial burdens as a result. And that may show be showcasing the mother working overtime. And now working overtime, she has no time now to spend with the child as much as she like to, So no the child is just missing the father's influence, and not missing the mother's influence to know as well. And then that could link back now to why a child may end up getting a lot of their influence now from the online aspect of it. They come home, mommy or daddy in home, they may got siblings just there, and they may just go straight on the computer and be on there, live on there basically. So lack of influence is also playing a part in where the child decides to then get their influence from, as a result of the lack coming from the parents. And another point to play into that, what a parent could maybe not be there to influence their child, is teenage pregnancies. When a teenager becomes pregnant and they may still want to continue their academic studies, they may have other goals and aspirations, they may still want to enjoy the youth. So when a child is brought to that situation where the mother, they may be in the home of the mother, but the mother isn't really there, or the mother isn't really a mother because she may want to go out partying, or she may want to do whatever she want to do first because she still feels that she want to enjoy her youth. These are different things now that impacts and that affects our youth, and where they end up getting their influence from. A lot of the children, as doing work in the schools and talking to the children personally, a lot of the children who are acting out and stuff, when they sit down and talk to them, they're having issues at home. They're having difficulties there. So that definitely has a part to play in the influence the in our youth today, and why the violence is the way we see it. The third point I have is lack of emotional intelligence and tools. And what that is basically meaning is, how do you handle when things do not go your way? Emotional intelligence is when something could be negatively impacting you, but you know how to carry yourself regardless. You know how to deal with this situation in a peaceful manner regardless. And again, if what is around you is, anytime somebody disrespect you, violence, or anytime somebody say something you don't like, you can choose violence. Again, that shows that there's a lack of emotional intelligence there, that the person needs someone to come and sit down to talk to them, to show them and to guide them on how to deal with those situations. A lot of the guys who are the bad boys, they feel like they have to play into that role of being a bad boy because that's what is expected of them. And a lot of them don't know any other way of dealing with that. It's just like, I have to do this now. The person took it to this level, so I have to take it. I can't take that. I have to take it further, So so you can't, with a situation like that, you just can't tell a person, oh, don't choose violence, just avoid conflict. No, you have to give them tools in what to do and how to manage those feelings or those emotions that may arise within them, because in that moment of anger or rage, you may not be open to taking advice from anybody, or just saying no. The way you feel, you want to react, you want to respond. So you have to give person tools on how to handle those emotions when they arise. I remember when I was going to primary school, we were taught that if you get angry, count count to 10. Count to 10 and breathe slowly. Take deep breaths in and deep breaths out, and I count to 10. And that's well and fine, and that's good. That's a good first step. But you still have to do something after that. Because what happens when is a situation when somebody's coming, they're aggressive, they're coming at you. You're trying to remain calm, so you count to 10, you walk away from you count to 10, and then you have to go back in the same classroom, the same environment, and deal with them again. You cannot want to count to 10 for the whole day. They might come to a point where you get sick and tired, and you decide, you know what, I'm responding because count to the 10 ain't working. So you have to give them tools and practical advice on how to engage and how to solve, not just a plaster for the emotion. You have to give them a solution for the emotion. I give them ways that they could overcome these feelings, overcome these desires that they may have to respond in a violent way, you know. So that's definitely a part as well. And again, under that I have an example of love by the parent. You know, when you're in a home where the mother and the father's together, at one point in time you can see mommy and daddy arguing, you know, and you're gonna be watching daddy to see how he responds, how he can deal with the situation. Things may not be going daddy's way, things may not be going mommy's way. And with both persons in the home, and if they handle it the correct way, the child could see that and they could learn from that. You know, they can have practical they can have practical examples of that in the home where they see mommy and daddy conflict resolve. You know, see mommy and daddy come together to sit down and they talk about how they feel, and they come to a solution rather than anything else occurring. You know, so that was one of the points. Another point I had there was experiences. So again, experiences and how it's linking back to the cause of violence in our youth today. A lot of what determine our experiences as children is the financial standing of our parents. Because as a child, you can't work for yourself, can't provide for yourself. You're totally dependent on your parent to provide shelter, clothes, food, these things, you know. So your parents' financial standing will determine how much they could provide for you or what they could provide for you, you know. So coming from a poor environment where the realities are harsher, that may affect a child's experience. Because mom may now, let's go back to the single parent example. Mom might be home, she working overtime, she trying to make ends meet, she could barely get things done, and as a result, you can't go to camp with your friends. You don't have access to things that your friends does, and the child may have a desire. I want these things. I would like to be like my friends. I feel left out. You know, I don't have these things, and that may lead to them making certain decisions, or feeling frustrated, or feeling inadequate, or all of these different things. And not just that, but oftentimes when a parent is in a high pressure in situation like that, where she has to be providing paying for all the bills, feeding the children, doing all these things, and barely have enough, that creates a level of impatience or a level of frustration. And a lot of the time that frustration is then taken out on the child, you know, because the child is going to be one saying, mommy, I want this, mommy, I want that. And then mommy can be upset, not because she already got all these things on her head already. And no, you come in asking for something, I can't get nothing for myself. So that, again, parents' financial standing affects the child's growth and development, what the child is able to experience, the type of environment the child may have, you know, as a result. So that was one point I had. Another under experience is childhood traumas. And one thing of all that I've realized after going to schools and talking to our young people and engaging with them is a lot of our young people are having grown adult experiences. They're battling situations or dealing with situations that even as an adult we would find difficult, you know. And again, it's coming from the harsh realities that may be happening at home. It's coming from the harsh realities that may be happening in your neighborhood. If there's shootings every day, if there's gang-related violence every day around in their vicinity, a lot of these things that happen in our community affect our children, and it may cause our children to have personal experiences as a result of these things that may traumatize them. So under experiences under the trauma, I give examples such as rape, physical abuse, verbal abuse. All of these things have a huge role to play um, in the child's development and the decisions the child ends up making. Um, and the last point is morals and values. So I believe morals and values is affecting our youth, and it could be is one of the causes of the violence in our youth today, because of morals and values, because of your religion. And religion, I don't when people hear religion, very often people think about the church and these buildings and stuff, but that's not really what religion is. A religion is your way of life. So everyone has a way of life. Even if you're an atheist, even if you don't believe in God, you still have a religion. A religion is your way of doing things, your way of handling things, your principles, the standards you set for yourself. And that's your way of life, and that's your religion. And from the moment you remove God from that picture, and I'm going to be biased now because God is the one who saved me. God is the one who got me back on the right path. God is the one who took me away from that lifestyle and living in the world and stuff, and potentially making bad decisions. So from the time you take God from the center of that and you put anything else, it's going to be doomed for downfall. Nothing else can take his place in regards to striving to be the best person that you could be, or in terms of striving to have good morals and values. And the reason we need God is because he provides us with that standard that we have to try to live our lives by. You see, you and I, we all have biases to ourselves. You know, we may see somebody do something that's wrong, and we'll be quick to point that out. But when it comes to us and ourselves, and we do something that's wrong, we have an amazing ability to rationalize our behaviors and our standards. And if we are the one that are dictating our morals and our values, then when we fall short of them, we may have in our mind a valid excuse or a valid reason for why it was okay to fall short. But when you have God at the top, when you have God in his rightful position, it doesn't matter the reason. You know right is right, you know wrong is wrong, and there's no excuses that you could try to come to God with to rationalize your behavior. You know what you did was not the right thing, you know. So those are my 5 points. So now that we got to that point, as I said earlier, I don't just like to point out the issues, but I also want to bring practical solutions to those issues, you know. And I really thought long and hard on these things, and is so interesting. All of these, you see, when we see an incident of violence occur, it isn't just that persons get it that day and decide they're going to kill somebody, they're going to shoot somebody, they're going to stab somebody. There's a path that person was on from before then. There were a series of decisions that they made that led them to that point, you know. So is not just to just look at that situation and say, oh, this person want this or this person want that. You always hear is easy to judge somebody, but until you live in their shoes, you don't really know, you don't really understand, you know. So back to the solutions I have for the points I made. So the solution for in terms of the music, I think the solution to that is being involved in your children's lives, you know, and developing, not just being involved in their lives, but developing a healthy relationship with your child, you know, creating an environment or creating a relationship rather, where they feel comfortable in coming to you, you know. And I get, as a parent, you want to see your child do what's right. You want to see them make you proud. You want to see them do everything, do all these good things. But the fact of the matter is, at one point or the next, they're going to fall short. They're going to make a mistake. And you have to ask yourself, if my child makes a mistake, do I think that they're okay, or they feel comfortable in coming to me with that mistake or not? You know? And a sentiment I hear from a lot of parents is, I'm their parent, I'm not their friend. And I completely get and agree with that to an extent though. Because of course the child has to respect the fact that you're an authority over them, and they have to abide by what your rules and what you say. But at the same time, you still want a relationship with that child. You still want them to you still want to know them. You still want them to know you. I'm certain that a lot of parents would rather their child come to them when something bad happens than to go out there and to go and take advice from other people. And for me personally, experiencing the single parent home and the struggles of my mom as she had to try to provide for us and stuff, I didn't feel comfortable coming to her with certain things. And my reason for not feeling comfortable and going to her was because I saw that she was already going through so much, and I didn't want to add to what she was already going through. She already has so much on her plate, you know. So when I see my mom come home and she's so tired and exhausted from her feet maybe swollen, all these things, I don't want to do anything to add to that, you know. So there are all different types of reasons that children find or will find to not then come to the parent, you know. But it is important for you as a parent to let them know. It does not matter how tired you see me when I come in. It does not matter what you see happening. Come to me whenever something is wrong. Talk to me. I want to be there for you, you know. Allow them to know that it's okay for them to come to you. And when they confide in you and tell you and share certain things with you, don't then spit it back in the face when you do something to upset you. And that's another thing that I find that could happen in parenting situation where the child come and they were vulnerable, they went through something, they open up, they said they open it to mommy or dad and they share, and then the next day now they do something that the mother ain't like, and the mother bring back up that thing and hit them, they're beating them over the head with the thing that they shared with them. What that's gonna bring now is distrust, because from that point now I'm not coming to you, because I'm gonna share that with you. I'm gonna thinking that you're there for me, you're supporting me, and then you can bash me the same thing that I shared with you in confidence. So when a child comes to a parent and they share, the parent too also has to respect that. The parent also too has to honor that, because the child is going to be watching you. The child is going to see then, okay, I tell mommy this, or I tell daddy this, how they're handling it, how they're treating me, sense, how they're talking to me, all these different things. So we have to allow our children to become comfortable with coming to us and talking to us, you know. And the more important than anything else is to allow them to understand to always be honest with you. And I found a way of finding a really good technique of enforcing that is, sometimes you will hear a parent say, did you take up the cookies that I told you not to take up? And then before you answer, if you tell me the truth, I ain't gonna beat you too bad. I ain't get as much lashes. But if it come clean, I can get a break. But if it don't come clean and lie to me, it's a different story. And that's an excellent technique. That's an excellent way of encouraging the child to be honest, because they can tell themselves, no, boy, it's better for me to tell the truth with mommy or daddy, because if I lie and I get catch, it can be worse than if I didn't tell them the truth from the beginning, you know? So these are things that we could use to encourage our youth to be open with us and to be honest with us, even if it's at their own detriment. They can say, you know what, I can take the couple licks because I'd rather that punishment than if we don't tell them the truth, you know? So encourage that honesty in the relationship. And another thing too, if you want your child to be honest with you, you also have to be honest with your child, you know? And sometimes the dynamic between the parent and the child is the parent then don't want to admit when they're wrong. So the child could be wrong about something, the correct them, to give them lashes for that wrong thing that they did, and next week the parent make a similar mistake, and oh, that ain't nothing, man, that's all right. And the child not gonna feel like, But this was a big issue when it was me. Why is not a big issue when it was you? You're not even apologizing. You're not even sympathetic. This is not fair, you know. So you still want to respect that dynamic to let them understand. You know what? As much as I'm your parent, I was wrong in this situation, and I apologize. You know. So, these are things that children will see and that they will respect. The next point I had is in terms of um, lack of positive influences. This is how we speak to our child. How do you scold your child? I think we may all have seen examples where a child do something wrong in a public setting, and the parent bless to blame the child and curse. Like, it's almost like you would think that they talking to an adult, you know. So how do we address our children when they've done wrong, you know? And that this is so powerful because we could either speak life into a child, when a child makes a mistake, that's a perfect opportunity that parent could take advantage of to teach them a lesson, for them to learn something, not just to embarrass them or to punish them, but that's an opportunity to get them to learn and to grow from the mistake, you know. So how we speak to our child has a lot to play in that. And so often you may hear the mother, especially if it's again back to this single parent dynamic, or you just like your father, you was just doing this and doing that, and next and the third, and you don't realize that they're internalizing these words, you know. They're making that relationship in their own mind with themselves, that, oh, I'm just like my father, he ain't not good and angry, me not good. Rather than, I know that you could do better.
Yeah.
You disappointed me today. What
Yeah.
caused you to make that mistake? And you know better than this. I disappointed in you. It helps them know to understand themselves, and not see themselves as evil or bad or whatever the case may be, but see them with the potential to be something great, you know.
Yeah.
So how we address them, how we engage with them, plays a huge role in that.
Yeah.
um yeah, I know you told me 4 minutes left, so I
Yes,
don't
yes,
want to
yes.
over.
And we have a really tight schedule, but
Yes.
what a very intuitive, very you. This is a review from a practitioner. You
Yeah.
know, Mr. Franklin. This man is in the trenches, and
Yeah.
he is reviewing what our youth is involved in and why. He gave us at the start of the presentation the number of murders that we've
Mhm.
had, and you know, young people from 15 to 30 years old dying, you know, being killed because of violence, and giving us the, you know, a review of what really is happening with our young people. Any thoughts from you, Mr. Franklin, that you want to add? I know we have a caller that is trying to get through. The caller, you can call back. Go ahead.
You
Oh,
can't hear you. Mhm. Yeah.
you're good
Yeah.
now. You're good
Thank
now.
you very much and good night.
Okay.
I sat and I enjoyed your session. Trust me on that, sir. As a lot of things that you said are experiences that I had. Even the last was when you said, just like your father. A mother told my son so once, and she said, the little boy said, "Daddy, my mommy said I just like you." I said, and he come and he hugged me because he said that he wanted to be like me.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
that's good. That's
yeah,
good. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
he didn't understand that
Yeah.
she was trying to
Right.
Oh,
chastise me, but he wanted to be. He said, "My mommy said I just like you," and that was. He was proud, man. He wanted to be like his daddy. So, but
We
but
actually have a caller. Let's can we stick a pin right there? We have a caller. It's Nigel Newton. I'm seeing your name come up here, Mr. Newton. Can you turn off your YouTube channel because we're hearing you? Good night, sir. How are you? Okay, I'm not hearing him. Good night, Nigel.
Yeah. Good night, Marcia. Good night. Yes, I am with you. I'm hearing you.
Yes, I'm sure you would have heard the presentation from Jonathan. He was giving a review of our youth, and from a standpoint of somebody who is involved with them daily through this school program, etc. What was your general thought about that?
Oh, I think he is on point. Um, and I am pleased to learn of his concern about violence among the youth, because that is a very grave issue of national concern, and it is really good to see and hear young people addressing the issue of violence among the young people. And of course, that is particularly interesting to me because many people may not be aware, but I am a retired probation officer, and I would have interacted with many of the young people who were involved in crime and violence and so forth. I always try to I always tried my best to point them in the right direction, and I can say that I am very happy uh, that I was able to make a contribution to the development of our youth and steering them away from a life of crime and violence.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you for your work as your retired probation officer. Let me tell you, we're all doing all that we can for this beautiful nation, Barbados. Now, I know you called to just give your general review of Barbados in 2022 um, to 20 in 2023. So you can go right ahead, and then we're going to go back to just chatting with Jonathan. Go right ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. Well, generally speaking, um, I have been concerned about the state of governance in Barbados, not only in 2023, but from mid uh, 2018. All right, but I would not deal with the area of governance tonight, in that I am hoping to make a presentation later on or later down at some point in time on the matter of governance in Barbados. My concern tonight really is about education, because I think that as a nation, we do not have a clearly defined philosophy of education. That's why we are having the tinkering and the knee-jerk reaction to the issues that are affecting our education system and students across the education system.
Mhm.
I think that we need to have another look where we as a nation want to go and what we want to achieve, and look at our education system and see how best we can address the issues affecting the education system so that we can accomplish our national goal. Okay? And what makes me so concerned really is, I think it was sometime, no, about a year or two years ago or so, the Ministry of Education went into the idea of giving the principals of schools, employing principals by contract. And I was really concerned about that, because I have a number of questions that I would want to have clarified. Now, Barbados is a member of the Caribbean Single Market Economy, CSME, the British Commonwealth of Nations. So I am wondering if our membership of the CSMA and the British Commonwealth will make it mandatory for us to award contracts to non-nationals who are of the LGBT community. We also want to understand how such a move would on or undermine our sovereignty, one, our freedom to govern or manage our internal affairs. And I also want to know what would be the correlational impact of such a demand in subverting our concept of who we are as a nation, our national goals and aspirations, and the kind of society we as Barbadians wish to build. So those are the main concerns I have with education and the direction that we are going.
Yes.
Go ahead. You want to question?
No. I'm just saying that these are valid questions, and those of you who are watching, it's not just for the panel to respond, but you have the chat and you have the number. You can also call into the program. I put the number on the screen, 236-7000. But go ahead, Nigel.
And as a result, I would like to draw to the opposition, the people's opposition, a quotation from Socrates, really, because I'm concerned about education, the quality of education, the direction that we are going in terms of education, and as I mentioned earlier, the idea of awarding contracts to certain persons. Okay. And I am also concerned about the disregard for the mental, emotional, psychiatric, and what it would have, what such it would have on the maturity of our students. And looking at CALIA and addressing the issue of education or the education of the youth, CALIA, Socrates asked one of his someone who was listening to him. He said to CALIA, if your two sons were foals or cows, there would be no difficulty in finding someone to put over them. We could hire a trainer of horses or a farmer probably who will improve and perfect them in their own proper virtue and excellence. But as they are human beings, whom are you thinking of placing over them? Is there anyone who understands human and political virtue? You must have thought of this as you have done. Is there anyone? And I would like to relate Callias's or Socrates' concern with where we are headed and what we are doing in terms of education in Barbados.
Yes.
Okay. And the simple reason is that I think that out of Socrates' concern and discussion with Callias, I am suggesting that the caliber of the teacher and the nature and source of the values are critical in training and development of our children. And therefore, as a nation, we cannot disregard the impact or the correlational implications on the quality or qualities of the teacher
Yes.
and the nature and focus of our educational curriculum.
Thank you so much. Well, Nigel, this
Yes.
This is very very deep, and I'm going to ask Nigel, what you call Jonathan, because it still connects back with the youth, to make a comment on it. And but before I do that, I know Mr. Franklin was making a point, and I'm sure he will make some comment on what you have said. Thank you for your contribution, Nigel. And we are going to sign off from you now, but I'm sure you'll continue listening to the program and hear us talk a bit about what you're suggesting and what are your concerns. Thank you so much, Nigel.
Oh, you're most welcome.
God bless. Bye bye.
All right.
Yes, Mr. Franklin.
I've been saying for a lot of years that our biggest problem in Barbados is politics and politicians. Politics corrupts everything. Going back to 1981, there was a young man at the law school who was misbehaving, and the principal, a man I didn't particularly like because he beat me when he was deputy at Common for nothing, and I would never forget him for that. And he beat me for mutiny, he said. And I wasn't mutiny, it was best by me being poor, and they couldn't afford to lay down on the ground. And so I didn't have much regard for him. But thankfully, he left Common to become principal of law school. That's the best thing happened to Common as far as I'm concerned. But he went up there and he was trying his best, the way he thought. And there were some good things about him too. He wasn't all bad. And this youngster pulled a knife on him. He didn't say to the public, oh, he pulled a knife, I'm going to call the police. He take a knife from me, give a couple of lashes, And a politician got involved. That principal lost his job as a result. He ended up getting a substantial award from the court. I was working in the Attorney General's office, and I used to pay those monies at that time. So I was pleased to pay it to him, even though I didn't particularly like him. But I felt his pain. He lost his job because politicians got involved. And then, in order to fix the problem, the government made sure they changed the Education Act. That's why we had the Education Act in 1981 that became effective in 1982. Changed the way principals dealt with the schools, changed the schools that had governing bodies to yard full politicians as chairman of boards, and everything went downhill from there. One time the principal would carry me in the office, and I gave a couple of lashes, and that used to be, you can't go home and tell your mother anything because your mother know you at school and get lashes. Now she can get some more too. So that was my predicament. I couldn't go home and tell you that I get beat because she didn't want to hear what I get beat for. So I had to keep things like that to myself. I remember going to Commerce years later, and I go to the principal's office because he had an industrial relations problem, and he asked me to come and sit down with him. I said, where's my chair? He said, what chair is that? I said, that's the chair that you used to put your hand in when you got master and cut your back. So he said, he don't use that. But the same scientist that we were going to talk about later told the people, if you lash the children, they should call the police. And children got empowered. The teachers can't hit me, teachers can't tell me anything, and you go and stand up in teacher's face and you're a man and you're a woman now, because the only thing that the teacher had against you was a little bit, and even if they got a bit more, they can't use it. So politicians not understanding how because they don't have any training in anything, because you do not have to have any training to be a parent. You just got to be fertile. And so when you get children and you're a politician, all of a sudden you become an expert and you start telling people how to do things. People who have been trained to do it are, are overshadowed, their views are not heard. I well remember year when I worked in UPW, we had a situation where a young man, he was a welfare officer, and somebody came to the welfare department for assistance. He did the assessment, and he said, no, this person is not a candidate for assistance. And that was his report. He got transferred because the politician who sent that person to the welfare department expected him to get paid, get some money. Not mind you, the fellow was not in need, but the politician sent him. So that's what I'm telling you. Everything in this country that's going bad, that is going wrong. Crime, you have the politicians now get involved with the criminals. Starting from the opening of Parliament, like that's one of my pet peeves because they could not take my wife to the opening of Parliament when they became a senator because they had a space for her, but they had space for drug lords and all kind of stuff. People were there. The police identified them, and the politicians involved with the criminals. So when you have situations where where the politicians now have instant access to the criminals have instant access to politicians, and the young people seeing that, well, they aspire to be a politician, you know, or a criminal, because those are the two jobs that nobody can tell you anything. You know, petty criminals like the fellow who go and steal a check and go and try to cash it. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the big fellows who have the telephone numbers that you can call politicians, speed dial them when the police are there standing. We know of a situation like that. So it is going to be very hard to combat crime in this country when the people who are protecting the criminals are the elected politicians. That is
Yeah.
that is something that is troublesome. It is bothering me, and it should bother all of us. But people seem to um, give politicians a pass because you like them. But that is very sorry because I didn't get passes because my mother loved me. If I did something wrong, I paid the price, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And she loved me, and I well, she loved me to the day she died. But that didn't mean that I didn't get corrected,
Right. Yeah.
you
But
know.
you
So
know,
we
I was saying you raised an important point there. I know that Jonathan did not speak about that. We talked about the influence, lots of different influences, but we never talked about what's happening in our country politically as well, and children seeing some of our some of our politicians, not all, involved with and intimately involved in some cases, and some cases are kind of under the table involved with criminal elements. But Jonathan, we just have a few more minutes, and I just wanted to ask you to comment on both what Nigel just shared and what Mr. Franklin says before we close off this segment. Okay, you're muted, Nigel. You're muted, Jonathan.
Yeah. One second. I agree with what I heard Nigel was talking about in terms of the school and its role that it has to play in terms of our youth. Um, Again, going into schools and talking to a lot of the children and talking to counselors and stuff, some of the issues that counselors have to deal with is so much, and is as far as I know, is one person for an entire school. So the support system, there's only so many hours in a day one, and there's only so many students that can fit into that time slot. I go there to speak to the counselor sometimes, and I can't even get to speak to her because there's just so many students going in with issues, and those are the ones that are comfortable enough to even go in to talk to the guidance counselor, because they got some children that going through stuff and then going to the guidance counselor either. Um, so I do agree that work needs to be done in schools in terms of the infrastructure and what support systems you have in our schools to help deal with these issues. Because at the end of the day, if a child is showing aggressiveness and they have violent tendencies, sending them home for a couple of days is not going to solve the issue, especially if some of these incidents between children are long lasting, where it was from year one last year to this year. No, it escalated. No, it become a big thing. No, So we need to find proper solutions to handle these things within our schools, whether it be to have external resources available to the children, whether it means building in within the school itself more infrastructure to deal with these situations. And in regards to what Caswell would have said, that do kind of links back to what some of the points I was making in terms of the environment. Remember, I mentioned the community environment that child is in. You know,
Yes.
I remember being at the school one day, and before it was even in the news, one of the children at school, one of the fellas, he got a call. One of his boys, or one of his dogs, as he would call it, got shot and got killed. And he was getting the news, and this was something that wasn't even on CBC. One of the other block men probably called him and told him what happened, whatever the case may be. And he was offset for the whole day, you know. And it used to go to him, you approach him, you tell him the wrong thing, something could easily happen because his partner just gets shot, wherever the case may be. And then you have other incidents where um, there's an altercation in school, and then after school, a gang of fellas come up at the school to beat up whoever come to represent for their gang member, whatever the case may be. These are things that has happened, that I've seen happen in our schools, and the sentiment of it is okay. Because when you see a politician come on, you block and get the drug lord, the drug man, the weed, or whatever the case may be, and go off. What message is that saying? These rules exist, but these rules ain't really mean anything. Because once, all you have to do is know the right people, and you can make things go away. You know. So these things, these send powerful messages to our young people when they see these sort of things happening. Whereas, again, like, from my sentiment from the youth, I don't really think they're really interested in in politics anymore. And our youth aren't passionate about politics like one time before. They more so want to be the man on the block, because the man on the block is who got the respect. He's who got the followers and thing, So that's what our youth is looking at. They want that sense of loyalty and that sense of trust between their people, and a sense that that's what they think they're receiving when they join these guys, when they join these blocks and stuff. But that's not necessarily what it is.